السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق وخاطر لما سبق ناصب الحق بالحق وهادي إلى صراط الله المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره العظيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العظيم. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, I'm going to try to not be in preacher mode and just be more in conversational mode in regards to this topic that we have of neither left nor right. And in this time, perhaps of unprecedented confusion in our country, and perhaps in the history of humankind, we as Muslims need to strike the middle course. And it's important for us to understand, first of all, what defines moderation according to Islam, and not to use other people's definitions, because whether we realize it or not, by us living in the ethos of this society, many of us going to schools here, university, tuning into TV and things in pop culture, we have absorbed certain sensitivities and sensibilities and used people's nomenclature that has particular world views baked into them that perhaps has clouded our judgment on on how we even view what is the middle to begin with. So let us start with the best speech, which is Kitabullah. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that surely the most truthful speech is the Book of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in a well-known ayah that we all know, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَتَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. So, and thus we have made you a middle community, a balanced community, a just community, that what you may be witnesses over the people, a proof over the people or upon the people, and the messenger, alayhi afdalus salam, is a witness upon you. So number one, this is showing a type of what we can say, not only I'm trying to be careful with my words. This shows a spiritual hierarchy. So this is number one. In this society, we have been fed this idea of social political egalitarianism to the point that many of us have imbibed or believe that there is no such thing as hierarchy, or all hierarchy is wrong. Anyone who reads the Quran and does a little bit of reflection cannot come away with this understanding. This actually is something that comes out of Marxism. The prophets are above the people, the general people. And messengers have a rank over prophets who aren't messengers, because all messengers are prophets, but all prophets are not messengers. And the leader of all messengers is Al-Habib Al-Mustafa Muhammad salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi. Right? There's hierarchy. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning that we have a particular role and that we are to be shuhada ala nas. And then within this, the messenger alayhi salam is above us, and he is a witness over us. He is a proof for us. So how we judge the middle ground in all matters relates to لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَيَوْمَ الْآخِرِ وَذَكْرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and most certainly we have given you in the messenger of God, the messenger of Allah, a most excellent, balanced example. This is inwardly and outwardly for all of those who believe for all those whose hope, not just belief, for all those whose hope is in Allah and in the last day, and makes dhikr, makes remembrance of Allah often. This is the standard. Scholars of the Quran, in talking about this, as well as scholars of ethics, like Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, rahmatullahi alayh, and he wrote a very wonderful book. I'm not sure if it's translated into English, but it's a very excellent book in regards to this issue of moderation as a virtue. When we look at things from virtue, we don't look at things from the aspect simply of maqabil or the polar opposite. We look at virtue from the issue of the wasat. So Imam Ghazali wrote a book called Mizan al-Amal. It's a book of Islamic ethics. It's the balance of actions, where he talks about the wasat, the middle ground. So how we view things is that nothing too far to the right outside of the middle, nor anything too far to the left is virtuous. See, extremes just aren't to the right. There are also extremes to the left. Be they in understanding, in inward sensibilities, societally and politically. Anything too far to the right nor too far to the left is virtuous. Hence, I don't believe that Muslims should be going around saying, I'm a progressive Muslim or conservative Muslim. You align with the feel of the himar. And subhanAllah, there's something ishari in this, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the elephant and the donkey in the Quran, neither one of them are in good context, these two animals. Alam tara kayfa rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Have you not seen what happened to the companions of the elephant? مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ حُمِلُوا التَّوْرَاةَ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَحْمِلُوهَا كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. Right? Those who were charged with the religious scripture and did not fulfill it are like what? Are like the donkeys carrying books. So we don't go too far to the right or too far to the left. We aim for the wasat. For instance, they say as a virtue, let's look at this word, for instance, generosity. And al-jud is a word for generosity. And some of the people who are scholars of Arabic language, like one book that I studied with one of my teachers, mentioned this word, that there's different words in Arabic for generosity, but the word jud puts us in the mind of one being generous, not just when he or she is asked, but they're generous even when they're not asked, right? You have a type of empathy and spiritual consciousness that when you see a need in society or you see people with need, you even give and are generous when you are not asked. But كالجود بين الإسراف والبخل, for instance. This is mentioned, right? That jud or generosity is a virtue. To the extreme right of generosity, for instance, is being extravagant and wasteful, like some of our wedding parties, where you have 5 and 6 different types of meat, and you have all of these dishes and all these sweets, and then food ends up getting thrown away. This is extravagance. This is waste, right? But then you have to the left, al-bukhl. You have stinginess. So the middle ground is the virtue of generosity is between the two extremes of being extravagant and superfluous and being wasteful, spending too much and being wasteful on the right, and on the left, to the extreme, would be being stingy. Likewise, we have another example is as-shaja'a. Courage is a virtue. In our books of al-Futuwa, of sacred chivalry, this is one of the traits that's mentioned in the books of Islamic spirituality, one of the traits in Islamic spirituality regarding Futuwa. And of course, women should be courageous. But the courage socially for a man looks different from a woman. وَلَيْسَ ذَكْرًا كَالْأُنْثَى. We have to have balance about this issue of gender as well. Gender is a divine construct according to Islam. يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكْرٍ وَأُنْثَى. Allah literally says, O humankind, surely I have created or I have constructed the male and female. There is no third gender, or someone can just be a shapeshifter and be dhakar today, an untha tomorrow, and a them or they the next day. And them and they is plural in the English language to begin with. I can't be many. I'm one person. وَلَيْسَ ذَكْرًا كَالْأُنْثَى. And in this balance, there is not only a physical reality, but there's a metaphysical reality to being a man and being a woman. Ibn Ata'illah Iskandari said, "Inna li kulli haqqin haqiqa." Surely for every truth, there's a deeper reality, a metaphysical truth or reality. So what makes you a man and makes someone else a woman, there is something deeper in this, so we have to understand the balance of this. And as our Sheikh said, Hafidhullah Sheikh Majid, and this is where hikmah is in knowing how to act appropriately at the right time in the right place based upon the circumstances and also who you are. There's a level of self-knowledge that has to be involved in muhasabah, self-inventory and self-reflection. So it's the middle ground. So courage, for instance, is the middle. So we have on the one hand, to the right, Imam al-Ghazali, rahmatullahi alayhi, said, being reckless is not being courageous. On the other hand, to the left, al-jubn, or cowardice, is to the left. So courage is in the middle. It's not to be reckless, nor is it to have cowardice. So courage is not to have a lack of fear, but it is a struggle to overcome one's fears or one's anxieties, that to do what needs to be done at that time in the face of adversity and challenge. Like Musa and Harun alayhi salam had some anxiety and they had some fear in regard to Fir'aun, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, don't fear him, fear me. And they worked and they overcame that anxiety or that fear to deliver the message. And we know that cowardice is an infamy, is actually a spiritual problem, because we have authentic hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wa sallam sought refuge from al-jubn, from cowardice. So it is a spiritual problem that's too far to the left. So again, we have to be clear on our definitions. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa sallam is the standard for balance. The book that was revealed to his heart and his words and actions that conform with that is the standard for the middle way. As he said, khairu umuri asawtuha. The best of the matters in the middle, but that's how we judge the middle. What we judge mahruf and munkar by, good and evil, or what we judge morality by, is not simply subjected to public opinion polls. What's popular in society is not the standard. What is with the agenda of the elephant or the agenda of the field and their polling, that is not how we judge the middle. The standard is the Quran and لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That is the standard, and then we work from there to filter out or judge basically what is right or wrong. And then we have a responsibility for us to know this, to teach this, to embody this, and to tell the people about what the middle way is. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and it relates to this ayah as some of the scholars of the Quran have stated, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are the best nation brought for the people. And then there are three adjectives, three descriptors. You enjoin al-ma'ruf, what is just and wholesome. Al-adl wa tayyib. You forbid al-munkar, what is al-dhulm wal-khubth. And you believe in oneness of God. And dhulm is our teacher, Imam Majid Hafidhullah Ta'ala, mentioned this word dhulm. Linguistically, dhulm means, lughawi means taking something outside of its proper place. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's al-adl. He is the just, and He put everything in their proper places as He intended them to function. This is where virtue lies. And when people take things outside of their proper places, to the left or to the right, then this is dhulm. This is dhulm, this is wrong. And this is where injustice comes. Because it is God who has the most right to define where things should be. Now, in these closing things, we want to address two things more directly, inshaAllah. This is for the first one is just for the brothers, or more nasiha for the brothers. Sacred masculinity is defined by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is the example. Not red pill to the right and blue pill to the left. This foolishness that came from that movie, The Matrix. I don't want to take any pill. I want to taste the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dhawq. Don't give me any pill. I don't want pills. Red pill, blue pill. Being a real man is looking to the virtues of the middle, of the wasatiyah. So being a real man, the red pill on the right is unmanly. I don't use this term toxic masculinity. That's terminology from the secular left that was designed to pathologize masculinity. There's no such thing as toxic masculinity. Anything too far to the right or too far to the left is unmanly. And of course, we don't hear a term toxic femininity. This is the trick of Fir'aun. Yuqatiluna abna'akum. This is a long-standing program. This is in the imperfect tense. It talks about what Fir'aun did with the children of Israel. Slaughter the young males, and then you spare the women, so you can exploit them. This is not fi'lun madi, this is fi'lun mudari. This is not past tense. This is something that started back then at the time of Fir'aun over 5,000 years ago, and is still going on. If you want to disempower a people or community, you pathologize. If you don't literally kill their young men, you literally emasculate them and try to take away their manhood. What it means to be a real man. And then you spare the women and lift them up to make them the leaders to exploit the women. So we can't fall for the 21st century Pharaonic Dajjalic trap, my sisters. I was speaking to brothers, but sisters, you can't fall into this trap. Now, too far to the right is being a brute, being acting like a dictator, and treating women like commodities, having no feelings with women, no compassion. This is too far to the right. That's red pill. Too far to the left, however, is not manly either. Not taking responsibility, not having any sort of rigor, not confronting challenges, not showing any courage. And to the far left of that is what's called a dayuth, when a man has no ghira or no protectiveness for, first of all, for Islam, but doesn't even have this protective vigilant care, even for the women folk in his family. He's comfortable with any man talking to his wife at any old time. It's called deyuth. That's not a man either. So the brute is unmanly, it's too far to the right. And the softy, sissified guy, that's not a rajul either. الرجال قوامون على النساء. Because men are supposed to be qawamun. Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu anhu says this means hafidhun, that men are the caretakers, the protectors and the guardians of women. When a father marries off his daughter to a man, he is transferring that guardianship that he has for his daughter, trusting that man to have the guardianship. That's why, sisters, you need wali to get married, because it's a transference of walaya. Now, the other thing is politics. And I mentioned this thing about the fil and the himar. Politics, in many ways, is the art of compromise and negotiation. And honestly, I don't have any enemies. I have no personal enemies. But I would never wish on a personal enemy, if I had one, to run for political office. Now, many of you all know I work for CARE Michigan. I'm not against civic engagement and voting and things like that, right? But most people who are honest, who will stick to their deen, cannot last in political office or not be elected. If they go in like that, they will have to make compromises and may be corrupted. This is the haqiqah. It's very hard. But we have to be clear when it comes to socio-political issues that are going on, is Islam that is the standard. And we have a balance based upon who we support and vote for, and we have a standard, the Quran and Sunnah, in which our scholars develop something called maqasid al-sharia. We have a hierarchy. Our lives are not in imminent danger. We live in a safe society, for the most part. No one's targeting us to pick us up, mass killing Muslims, mass deporting us. As a matter of fact, annually, more hate crimes happen to Jewish Americans last year than American Muslims. What's the number one maqsad for us? Hizbut Deen, the protection of our deen and the ability to practice our deen and have religious conscience. If that is undermined, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. So we have a series, we have things that are what are called ad-dururiyat, we have things that are called ad-hajiyat, and things that are called ad-tahsiniyat. We have things that are absolute necessary issues we must deal with and preserve. Then we have strong needs, and then we have the third level, those things that help better or beautify the life. There aren't those life and death issues, nor are they strong needs. And we should have an analysis based upon this maqasid and this usul about our issues, about what we support and who we vote for. Personally speaking, I don't need a Muslim in office who is going to trample on and disrespect the sacred law. Because of identity. This being Muslim is not an identity, it is a reality. Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, radiallahu anhu, in conclusion, he said, Haqiqatu Islami al-istislam. The reality of al-Islam, of being a Muslim, it is loving, willful submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Submission to what He commanded and submission to what He prohibited through His book and min ati'il rasul faqala Allah. And whatever the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited, that suffices us, no matter if the whole world celebrates it and flies certain flags and says love is love or whatever. We have our standard. And we ask Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us all on the straight path, make us a people of moderation, of wasatiyah, have us see truth as truth and follow it, have us see falsehood as falsehood and stay away from it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us hikmah, grant us wisdom to be able to speak and act at the appropriate places, at the appropriate times, understanding the circumstances. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve our ulama and our mashayikh, our Imam Zayd Shakir, our Imam Muhammad Majid, the other ulama Sheikh Mukhtar, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant His loving mercy and compassion to the father of our beloved brother, Sheikh Yahya Rodis. John Rodis, may Allah forgive him of his sins. And we heard that tomorrow at 1 o'clock at Al-Maqasid in Allentown will be his janazah. For those of you who are on the East Coast or close by, go, and if you can't go to Allentown, then please pray for him and make dua for him at your locality. Wa afwan minkum. Assalamu alaikum.